for today's mostly irrelevant but not completely unrelated prop for today's video. I'm wearing the majority of my Viking getup, as I do not own really anything that's, I guess, directly Irish related, other than my Laura Nagelga back there. Gibby's doing some learning. I don't think he realizes the book ain't open. Anyway, I decided to put the Viking shit on. For the main reason being, the Vikings were in Ireland for a decent while. So I've got this shit on, as well as this. Germundbu, or Germundbu, however you pronounce it. I don't speak Norwegian. So, anyway, on to the actual video. The Arya Machna Kashka is considered to be one of the most significant moments in Irish history, immortalizing loads of important Irish figures like Tomás O'Cleric, Seamus O'Connolly, agus Padraig MacParish, both of which will eventually get their own videos. It also spawned many of today's most popular Irish rebel songs, one of many styles that Irish music is known for, such as Who Fears to Speak of Easter Week, and the Poem Turn tune, which coincidentally happens to be one of my favorites, and also the first one that I really found, The Foggy Dew, as well as being mentioned briefly in other rebel songs, such as The Valley of Knockanure and Boys of the Old Brigade. I note I would be absolutely more than happy doing a video dedicated to Irish rebel music, as it is by far, especially in the last, like, I don't know, good majority of a year, shooting up to be one of my by far favorite genres of music. So if you would like to give me suggestions on songs to not only talk about a little bit, as well as add to my own personal playlist of Irish music, go for it. I'm more than happy to listen to them. Episode 1 was about the aforementioned Tomás O'Cleric. So for today, for episode 2 of my lesser known figures series, I will be discussing another of the many leading figures of the Easter Rising, Joseph Plunkett. And similar to last time, I will be speaking as Gaeilge whenever possible, with English subtitles on screen whenever I do, as I'm learning the language as part of reviving my own ancestral heritage. And I think just that is an overall beautiful language that sounds really nice. With all that being said, Joseph Mary Plunkett was born in Ballyaclia on December 21st, 1887, to Mary Joseph Cranney and George Noble Plunkett, a papal count since 1884, and both being avid Fenians. As a child, he suffered from glandular tuberculosis, a variant of TB that resides outside the respiratory system. The boy spent much of his childhood in much warmer parts of the world because of his condition, primarily residing in northern Africa. His family, primarily his mother in particular, did not believe that modern medicine alone was going to be able to treat her son's illness, so she resorted to more traditional medical practices and prayer. Part of these treatments involved out-of-hospital surgeries and operations that, in most cases, did more harm to the young boy than good. The young Plunkett was a fan of what was then considered the newest breakthroughs in technology, such as photography and radio, something that he and I both have in common. For example, this is a 1915 this is a 1915 Kodak camera, which is by far one of my most favorite pieces of technology that I own. And as far as I know, yes, it still works. I have no clue, however, as I have one roll of functioning film for this that I have yet to get processed and developed. He was also an avid reader, normally spending countless hours engrossed in both books and newspapers, and presumably whatever else he was able to find that had words in it. As mentioned previously, the Plunkett family tended to reside in warmer climates, given Joseph's poor health, notably living in Algiers for a time, in what was then French Algeria. It was here that Joseph began to read, write, as well as learn the Arabic language. During his time in North Africa, he also took a keen liking to poetry, writing many poems of his own, both in English and Arabic, that he would eventually have published in 1912. I will attempt, if I can find some excerpts of those poems, I will put a link to them in the description below if you want to check them out yourself at some point. Nearing adulthood, the Plunketts moved back to Ballyaclia in the early 1900s. In 1909, Joseph wished to learn Gaeilge. So after posting a request in his local newspaper, he hired a man by the name of Tomás MacConkaya as a private teacher to help him learn the language. As it turns out, MacConkaya shared the same love for poetry that Plunkett had. It was through this shared interest, as well as MacConkaya also being an Irish nationalist, that the two became lifelong friends. In the early 1910s, Joseph became involved with the Brachas Fóblach na HÉireann, after attending a volunteer meeting led by Ewan MacNeil. His father allowed Joseph to use his property just outside Ballyaclia as a training ground for volunteers and IRB members. It was around this time that he joined the military committee, led by Thomas O'Clerig and Sean McDermott. Pluincéid left on La Isla Podrigue in 1915 with fellow volunteer Barry Dehi Mackesman on a diplomatic mission to the German Empire in hopes to negotiate with Berlin about supplying the volunteers with weapons and equipment for a nationwide rebellion against the British. Keep in mind this was during World War I in 1915, of which they reinforced their plans with the Ireland Report, a memorandum laying out the plans for said rebellion. The reply that the duo received stated that no German arms were guaranteed until a definitive date for the rebellion was set. Upon returning to Ireland, Pluincéid was introduced to a significant and growing figure in the IRB, Michael Cullen, who became his second in command, following being appointed as financial advisor to Pluincéid's father. He would once again go abroad in September, this time to the US, to link up with Sean O'Dowey, owner of the Irish-American Feeney newspaper, The Gaelic American. Pluincéid was to share with O'Dowey the current series of events back in the Emerald Isle, and O'Dowey would in turn relay to Berlin the finalized date for the Irish Rebellion on Easter Sunday, 1916. During his time in America, he fell in love with Grace Gifford, and the two would be engaged only a few weeks after getting together, with plans to be formally married Easter morning shortly before Seosamh is to leave to fight. Gifford was initially entirely unaware of the full extent of her fiancé's illness, but she did not let that get between herself and her love for him. Speaking of Pluincéid's illness, it was beginning to take an extreme toll on the man. A few weeks before the rising, Seosamh underwent a surgery on his TB-afflicted lymph nodes, leaving him incredibly weak, and his doctor even estimating that he only had a number of weeks to live. 3 days before Easter, the Germans sent an undercover shipment of weapons to Ireland on the SS Libau. Unfortunately for the Irish, however, the shipment contained neither artillery pieces nor German manpower, which, even if it had, it wouldn't have changed much, considering the ship was detected by the British authorities en route to Ireland and reportedly scuttled by the captain in an attempt to keep the weapons out of British hands. It was because of this incident that MacNeil, who was leading the volunteer force, called off his men. This caused a rift within the military committee, forming an emergency meeting Sunday morning about whether to postpone the assault or to stick with the original plan of attacking just a couple hours after this meeting concludes. Pluincéid, who had forced himself out of his sickbed to attend the meeting, was on the side of maintaining the original date. As a result, he and Grace's wedding was put on hold due to him having to attend the meeting. It was eventually decided that the rising would be postponed 24 hours, taking place the next day on Monday, the 24th of April, as opposed to Sunday, the 23rd of April. So that way, the committee could have enough time to clear up the orders given out by MacNeil, in hopes to get the volunteer forces back on track. On the morning of Monday, April 24th, 1916, Pluincéid, the remaining members of the military committee, and O'Callaghan, along with around 150 or so Irish rebels, occupied the Ardloifig an Focht in the beginning of the Area Machna. Due to his extensive knowledge in military strategy, Pluincéid would be a key member in leading the ground forces throughout the rising. Not in actual like combat, he wouldn't go out and shoot in streets, but he would basically be the guy that looks at maps of the area and says these soldiers go here, kind of thing. On the other hand, he was only getting sicker and sicker as the days added up, being bedridden for the majority of the latter half of the rising. Saturday morning, just before surrendering to British forces, Pluincéid wrote his final letter, one to his fiancée Grace, which I will attempt to read now. Saturday, April 29th, 1916, somewhere in Moore Street. My darling Grace, this is just a little note to say I love you, and to tell you that I did everything I could to arrange for us to meet and get married, but that it was impossible. Except for that, I have no regrets. We will meet again soon. My other actions have been as right as I could see, and make them, and I cannot wish them undone. You, at any rate, will not misjudge them. Give my love to my people and friends. Darling, darling child, I wish we were together. Love me always as I love you. For the rest, all you do will please me. I told a few people that I wish you to have everything that belongs to me. This is my last wish, so please do see to it. Love, Joe. Pluincéid will be placed in prison Kilmainham after the rising, along with the rest of the rising leaders. After learning that she was pregnant, the British authorities would allow Seosamh and his fiancée, Grace Gifford, to be married in the prison church on the night of May 2nd. On the morning of May 3rd, 1916, just 7 hours after marrying Grace, Seosamh Pluincéid would be executed by firing squad, being among the last of the 7 Area Machna leaders executed for their parts in the rising. Grace Pluincéid would go on to be elected in 1917 to the executive of the Sinn Féin political party. He was arrested during the Cloge Gahara na HÉireann and interred in Prúiseann Kilmainham until being released in 1923. She would face a constant battle against her in-laws over her late husband's will, that was eventually settled out of court. Grace Plunkett died on December 13th, 1955, in Anquenaven, a district in central Bali Aklia. He was given a state funeral and buried in Religlashney with full military honors. In the decades following the events of 1916, Seosamh Pluincéid would be immortalized in many ways throughout Ireland. Many of his poems are very well known, with his most popular poem being I See His Blood Upon the Rose. He and Grace are also the subjects of the Irish rebel/love song Grace, which, depending on who you ask, is occasionally disputed as to whether or not the song counts as a rebel tune. The song is sung from Seosamh's point of view in the final hours between he and Grace marrying and his execution, with him wishing that they had gotten the chance to be together and, quoting the song, share our love. It has, especially in the process of making this video, shot up to become not only one of my favorite Irish rebel songs, but overall one of my favorite songs overall. And I will put in the description of this video a link to my personal favorite rendition of it by Derek Warfield and the Young Wolf Tones, which one of my favorite Irish music groups, so shout out to them. There you have it. Another installment of lesser known figures. As per usual, feel free to use the comments to correct any mistakes you notice, as well as give me more ideas to consider. And also, as mentioned with the Tommaso Cleric video, I am open to constructive criticism over my pronunciation and overall usage of Gaeilge in this video. As constructive criticism, I feel like would help me in the long run over the process of trying to learn it, which is going to take years. Please share this video, as well as my other videos, with friends, family, other history YouTubers, you know, and so on and so on. Make sure to take a peek at my Twitch channel, Discord server, and the Nightmarecast channel, where our ragtag group of dipshits do dipshit things. All that being said, Kage Sanam Dom, I was Gorov Mahagov as Ukta Huidama.